recorded on the cloud. So welcome everyone. This is a team effort that's put on by a fabulous new group that's in ASEA, led by Patty Carrier, you're on, can you go on mute there for a second? So it's led by, well, first
Marian
off,
Palmer.
well, it started off with Marian Palmer. And Marian Palmer was my son's kindergarten teacher. And we met 30 years ago. And through this serendipity and a little bit of magic, we came together and we started working together. And then within the last 10 years, we switched over to this company called ASEA. It's one of the most remarkable things I've ever even imagined. Through that process, Marian then met Gloria Lybecker, and Gloria has really taken the leadership and developed through back in her roots down around Waitsburg and Walla Walla and some of those places. And this group has formed through that process. So I want to introduce tonight your hostess, who will then kind of lay the thing out, and then I'll take it from there. And that's Darleen. And so Darleen from Waitsburg.
Thanks, Jerry. Welcome, everybody. So we have a very exciting night tonight. We have Dr. Lee Ostler. He's from the Tri-Cities area. He's a member of ASEA's Medical Professional Board. He is the founder and program chair for Medical Dental Summit, an annual gathering of physicians and dentists in the Northwest, which focuses on principles and practices of oral systemic health and interdisciplinary co-management. Dr. Osler is the subject of a documentary titled Bridging the Gap, and this highlights his work, and he is the developer of redoxdentistry.com. Please help me welcome Dr. Ostler.
Thank you, Darleen. It's a pleasure to be with you and your group here in Eastern Washington. I'm assuming that everybody's probably relatively local to the eastern part of the state. So,
well, we do have actually, we have David Clinton from Anchorage, Alaska. It breaks the mold there. And I think, well, we may have some coming in from, I think it's Minnesota, but.
And I'm from Arizona.
well,
That's right.
then we'll talk about the western part of the United States.
There we go.
So, but I am in the Tri-Cities. Richland, Washington specifically is where my practice is, and I've lived here since mid 80s. Was actually born in Moses Lake, so I'm kind of a native of Eastern Washington anyway. But I'm pleased to be here and have been invited to maybe make a few comments. So Jerry, did you want to take it from there?
Sure. Through some really interesting turns of events, Dr. Ostler began to question whether there was more than what they taught in standard across the board dental schools in America. Can you tell me why that was the case and what led you to start looking at being a key player in looking at holistic dentistry?
I sure can. Back in the 1980s, there was some theories being floated that, believe it or not, that the mouth was a part of the body. It was like,
What the heck?
that bacteria in the mouth had an effect in terms of disease, not just in the mouth, but that it affected other parts of the body. And what started as a theory, maybe even just a hypothesis, so slowly gained steam as more and more studies have come in through the decades. And in I'll say probably 1989 or the early 90s, I began to start seeing some of this literature show up that suggested that oral health was related to heart disease and diabetes. Now we can expand that to, neurological brain health and musculoskeletal. I mean, there's every part of the body is affected by it. But that really intrigued me. And one of the first thoughts I had was that if this is true, then I need to start working with physicians to co-manage patients. We need to get out of these silos and start, interacting with each other. Well, as time went on, I did a lot of training in various, areas. And then in the actually it was about the early 2000s, maybe 2005, I kind of had the idea that we needed to create another academy. And so I found some colleagues back in the Midwest who were already putting this idea together from, for their own thinking. And we built an academy called the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health. I started a little marketing company on the side and started doing writing, wrote several books on trying to get, the concepts down of how medicine and dentistry needed to be interrelated and brought together, especially at the street level where physicians and dentists are actually treating patients. And during that time, I wrote several books, but again, the literature was not definitive. You can't say causal, A causes B. And so everything was about a connection. And I spent a lot of time in the literature going through thousands and thousands of articles, trying to establish the preponderance of evidence that indeed the mouth was related to the body, which is something that your intuition will teach you. But in the professional side, you need to nail it down. And that was a good, jumping ahead to Redox, that was a good schooling ground for me, because when I was introduced to Redox, probably the first thing I thought of is, how come I didn't already know about this? That was the first thing. It's like, if this is so good, and it came about because of my wife's physician suggesting to us that we get her on some redox signaling molecules. And I said to him, well, what is that? And he said, just go Google it and get some. He wasn't himself involved at the time. And so I went off on my own. And again, I'm rather, I guess I have a skill set about doing that kind of research. And aside from observing my wife's experience with it, I was able to dive into the research and answer questions that maybe not other people, would exactly know how to quickly get to. And finding those articles and pulling the original or the primary sources together was just an exciting journey for me, to discover what I was started hearing from everybody, but because of my own, efforts and attempts. That was the beginning of not just my experience with the company, ASEA, but also with the journey that eventually developed these books. I wasn't writing a book when I started. I was just putting a bibliography together. I needed to understand it. And so as I was doing that, and other health professionals, including physicians, were asking, the question of, show me the science, show me the studies. Well, we all know that we don't have studies like they want. They want random controlled trials, and you can't do that with a product like this, or the company goes sideways into the drug market. And so you have to go into the literature and connect the dots. You've got to show the preponderance of evidence that this is an established field of biology, and then find the application for it in a myriad of different places, because it's a myriad of places that these molecules function within the body. And you just can't isolate to talk about one body part or one tissue or one organ. It's everything. So that's just kind of a quick summary, I guess, of how I got into this, and how what I was doing before kind of, prepared me for what I'm now very excited about, which is continuing to dig in those trenches and uncover additional information, as well as to figure out what hopefully we're all trying to figure out, and that's how to share it better and build a side business.
Super. So here you were, kind of blazing some new trails, and you found this, and I really appreciate the idea that, where the heck, how come I haven't heard of this? And it's a very unique sort of twist of fate that it exists in the form that it does today, in a very simple liquid form and in a saline solution. But when you were looking at the fundamentals, I know, as in my background as a physical therapist, and the whole educational system that led us to get narrower and narrower and think of hopefully some causative factors instead of just symptoms on a day-to-day basis with people and patients. We wanted to try to get down to what are some of the causes. And here we tumbled so far down into the basic fundamental components of biology. Was that startling to you when you saw how fundamental, how ultimately baseline this stuff was, and how many applications there were? And how did that play out for you?
Well, it was exciting. You know, I don't think I was surprised or stunned. But I marveled, you know, that this was the answer. And one of the discoveries that came to me as I was doing this research was an understanding what biooxidation was about. And when you think about what in life makes us healthy, we all would name exercise, you know, good nutrition, stress reduction, good sleep, avoiding infection,
Good loving.
good loving. You know, we name all those things, and we know that if we do those, we're going to be healthier. Well, we accept that as axiomatic. You know, that's just natural law. If you exercise and eat right and so on and so forth, that you're going to be healthier. The question I was trying to struggle with is why. I'm a process engineer at heart. I want to know the mechanism of action. How does A get to C? You know, how does A get to Z? And the answer I discovered was redox. Everything that makes us healthier plays on the redox platform. We call that the redoxome. Just like there's a genome and a metabolome, there's a redoxome. And that's the epigenetic layer or foundation that overlays and influences the genetics, such that anytime there is a gene that needs to be expressed to produce a certain function, such as make a protein or whatever, there has to be an epigenetic switch or pathway activated to tell the DNA what to do, when to do, and how to do it, when to stop doing it. And it's that control mechanism. And so the things in life that we call lifestyle, good lifestyle, that create improved health and resistance to disease, and that amps up our immune systems in good ways, those play on this redox landscape. There's an interaction, or we call it the interactome, between all of those moving parts. Doesn't matter what they are. Every single reaction, every single event that goes on in the body, biochemically and biologically, happens because an electron is moving from one molecule to another. That's what redox is all about. It's the reduction oxidation, which is the transfer of electrons. So when you strip it down to the most fundamental layer, that's what energy metabolism is. That's how our mitochondria make energy for us to go. That's what all the metabolic reactions are in the body that dictate all the functions and the responses and so forth. And there's one concept that continues to strike me, and I didn't really get this at first, but I do very well now. And it's a concept that I borrow from a kind of a theological or religious concept about the creation, and that is that if you go with that thought that everything in life is created either to act or to be acted upon. And when I write in Redox Matters about redox signaling molecules living and functioning at the interface between energy and matter. That's the most basic foundational level there is. Well, back to the act and acting upon. There's a lot of agents and compounds and supplements and even food that makes us healthy because it acts upon our redox landscape and activates certain things. The problem is and that's not a problem, but the difference is that nutrition by and of itself is not responsive. It just top loads. It just comes on board and we use it. The cell, on the other hand, is acting. It is responsive. And that's where redox signaling molecules play in this equation, is that they are part of the responsive nature of the cell. And in that regard, I liken it to what we could call cellular gravity. Gravity just is. You don't not have it and then have it. You don't make it more or less. It just is. It's a natural law. And that's what redox signaling, that's what redox activation is in this regard, is it just is, and it's responsive. And that is, in my mind, that's a crucial differentiating feature of what ASEA has versus what a lot of other companies have, which do have some great products because they can act upon, but they do it through secondary messaging. It's not a primary from within. And so I like to say that we, within ASEA, because of what we have and the technology we have, we can play and do play on both sides of this redox landscape. We have signaling molecules, which is the cell acting in response to its environment. That's why it's responsive. And we have the vitamins and the cofactors and the enzymes and the agents, the phytochemicals and phytonutrients and bioflavonoids, like some others also have, that can play as a stimulator of the redox reactions, but it's all done secondarily. And so that, to me, that makes us, everybody else is a me too, even though we just came out with this. It's like, this is the real deal. That's how I view it.
Fascinating. And y'all can figure that if you got to go on vacation with him for a week, you could be the smartest person in your neighborhood, that's for sure. And so there's a really interesting part to so much of this that we want to make sure all of you are aware of Dr. Osslers' books. And so how do they get them? How do they order them? What's the deal?
Oh, thank you. I put up a website. The title of the first book is Redox Matters. And that's the name of the website, is redoxmatters.com. And on that site, there's information about the books. There's also a learning tab where there's just some good, straightforward informational, educational information. We also have a video section where we're hosting all of the ASEA 5 videos. Those are, if you've not familiar with that, those are the videos where we have medical panels come together, and we just have a kind of an informal discussion amongst the panel members as to what is redox and how are they using it in their practice, to kind of give some medical validation. And we just now, I'm not going to call it gained an agreement, but I've invited Dr. Walker to put all of his videos on that site as well. So the site will continue to grow, but I look at it as being a repository of good quality information about especially the technical, medical, health, biochemical side. And the second book is also on there. It's called Healthy Matters. Redox Matters is a little bit on the scientific side. I wrote it kind of in response to physicians saying, show me the studies. And so this is going through, hundreds and hundreds of studies and concepts to establish that, if you don't like this idea, you're going to have to take it up with 400 or 500 authors, that have written papers. You've got to discount and explain it away. Healthy Matters is more the application of the lifestyle. How do I take this information and understand the rules of the cell? That's what I spoke on in Las Vegas last week. But it's the idea, if you understood the Redox platform and how cells work, you could walk away from that and walk into a grocery store and understand how to make smarter decisions, because you'll be eating and then you can be exercising and doing all these lifestyle things in accordance with what you now know the rules of your cell are and how they can be, I'm not going to use the word manipulated, but how they can be utilized in your behalf to produce a healthier outcome.
Exceptional. So make sure you all check that out. I highly recommend those. Now we're going to switch a little bit, and we're going to go to a discussion of practical use. How do you get this? what combinations and some new iterations of taking that core basic science and the core basic technology and saying, upon this rock, we're going to build the concepts of your body finding the best way to do what it needs to do in its adaptations. And so through that, this company that we work with called ASEA, ASEA, it's short for, I mean, it refers to an old English term that means of the sea. And since it's derivative from the functional first component that cells use to create these molecules called saline or salt water within the cell and in the cell matrix and the interstitial fluids and the blood, all of it is based on a saltwater system. And so that saltwater system was heavily studied, and by accident, really, they moved into a new idea. And that was how does the cell use this to activate so many different things? That was probably 20 years ago. And through all of that came a product set that started with this core basic material called well, today we call it Redox signaling supplement. And this redox signaling supplement is a liquid, and you simply drink it. You can apply it by spraying it on. You can spray it in your eyes. You can breathe it. It is the most incredibly safe material. And so Dr. Ostler, one of the things that we use that for, and I'm just going to jump back to a little dentistry. What are some of the things that just sort of you would use it or recommend to use in the mouth, and some of the things that you've seen as a result, just in that local area? Again, that's attached to the rest of the body. We have to remember that for the rest of our discussion here, but directly in the mouth, what have you seen?
Well, we've seen some good favorable responses, that are very consistent with the way it works everywhere else in the body. We have to kind of be careful, I guess, and Jerry, you can bleep if I go too far here, but in the body, let me put it this way: in the body's white blood cells and immune system utilizes the native production of these very same molecules to take care of bacteria and virus and fungi. That's how white blood cells kill pathogens, bad bacteria. It's the superoxide and the hydrogen peroxide and the hypochlorous inside the cell. Well, if you start off knowing that that's just nature, that's just, then you can connect the dots in your own mind. Well, what would happen if we provided those same molecules and used it in the mouth topically? What would happen? So I think that's probably all the farther I'm.
Well, let's go from there to this other side of it, and that is, let's say you had someone who is incredibly skilled, maybe a fantastic artist, and you gave them they have to have the spare parts and tools. So they might have to have a giant slab of marble. They might have to have a couple of sets of chisels. They need to have light, and they need to be able to see, and then they use their imagination, and they have to have muscular skills and all the stuff that goes along with it. Well, imagine that your cells in your body and your body's healing mechanisms and so forth are that magical set of skills. But for some reason, in our lives, we live now with too much stress. Blink your eyes if you know anybody who has too much stress. And so we also don't sleep enough, especially those who went to convention this last weekend, don't sleep enough. We even know that there are some people who don't exercise enough. Isn't that crazy? Or people who are dehydrated. Other areas come in when we have a confusion or a lack of raw materials. Let's say we don't get the nutrients out of our food. Well, you start piling all this stuff up on top of each other. Some believe that we live in an area, in a world where it's polluted. We got air pollution, light pollution, sound pollution, radio waves, microwaves, poison in the air, poison in the water. We have deficient food, lack of exercise, lack of sleep, all these other things add together. That's like taking our artisan, putting a bag over their head, making sure that both hands are tied behind their back. They can't find their tools. The lights keep going off. The wind blows through. They can't get the instructions. So that's our body trying to operate. As we begin to start to improve the communication between all of those points, we start removing the bag off the head. What can it do? It can do miraculous and amazing things. And your body, if it's going to get better, it's going to likely have to fix itself. So we're looking and talking about those fundamental tools that it might want or need in order to do the best job possible. It's been said that a person today is being exposed in 15 minutes to more pollution or chemical agents than a person living 100 years ago would have gotten in an entire lifetime. So we have to adapt and change. And so our systems now, we've got to adapt and change. So we've come up with this set of tools. First, this core set of redox signaling molecules that allow for the communication to start back in, allow for this magical process of building instead of deteriorating. But now we're adding some new pieces to it. And we started again, as Dr. Ostler mentioned, with the nutritional components that it's going to be looking for if it goes to work. And so we said, let's look around and find a set or series of different things that it would likely need in this deficient environment. And that's what we call the ASEA VIA line. And there are a series of technologies then that are supporting the original activity of the ASEA. But we've now got 2 additional supporting criteria. I'm going to share with you, we've got some new directions in which we're moving. Realize that skin is important because it's the second largest organ in the body, it's the largest organ in the body. And it has to be the interface protecting you from the outside world. And you'll notice that there are a lot of things that can go on with skin. It's supposed to give you a signal if you're sitting on a nail. And so it takes in information from the outside, but it can also take longer to fix itself from our environmental stressors, and it starts to get old and saggy and doesn't turn over and replace itself as quickly as it used to. So we decided to come up with a whole set of new skin-related technologies. Now, the technical terminology as we go through this discussion, first off, we're in an area where we're looking for function. But we have to take care that when we talk about these things, we can't diagnose, cure, heal, or even prevent things according to the professional categorization of where we are. But you know what can do a lot of those things? Your body. Did you know that that's one of the most remarkable things in all of life is the body healing itself? Plants healing themselves. Animals healing themselves. That's really crazy how much information it takes to do that, how much it takes in to start, to stop, and as Dr. Ostler is also related. So in that effort, we've now come out with a preparation that cleans the skin in a way that allows this functional component that redox signaling molecules to go on the skin, but not be what we call denatured. We had to do it with a very pristine material. And this, we'll just pull this up so you can take a look at the newer offering. And it's right here. This just came out this last weekend. And so I'm going to open up to some people who may have had a chance to use this. Marian, or you, and Beth. By cracky, Beth was down there. Beth, I think it's awesome that you showed up for that. Now, this technology here, well, let me do this first. Dr. Ostler, I know that you're busier than a one-arm paper hanger. And so getting back to life would be good. Does anybody have any questions for him? And then we'll let him go, or he can stay with whatever he pleases.
I guess, Lee, what other things have happened in your family or friends that you would say, wow, this is amazing?
That's a really great question. You've all heard the story of my wife. I wrote about it in Redox Matters, and we talk about it often. I have a daughter-in-law who has been very open about this. We've interviewed her on ASEA 5. You can see her testimonial or her story at the redoxmatters.com site, and just look for the name Ashley in the archive videos. But she has struggled with some neurological and psychiatric, emotional, mental health issues, and substance abuse in terms of prescription meds for a long time. She's a type 2 diabetic, lost her second child just after childbirth, has had some PTSD experiences, and she's a winner. You know, she's a fighter, and she's gone through recovery. She's in recovery. And if you were to ask her, you know, straight on, she would tell you that ASEA has been a pivotal part in helping her to maintain the balance that has helped her mental health and her spiritual health, her physical health. Myself, I went for 18 months after we started, you know, 2 ounces twice a day, and progressively having increased back pain, numbness in my arms. And I thought when COVID shutdown hit in March of 2020, I was going to run off to see a spine surgeon to see if he couldn't quickly stitch it back together and extend my working career a while and get rid of my numb arms and back discomfort. And come to find out, I have multiple levels, probably between 7 and 11, that would probably wind up being fused. And they just frankly said, you're never going to go back to work if we do this. And so I started thinking back on Jim Glenn's story of his back pain and how they doubled up and tripled up. So I decided to do that. And within under a week, maybe just even 3 or 4 or 5 days, and to this day, from that moment on, I'm going to say 99%, maybe even almost 99.9% of my back discomfort disappeared. And probably 98% of any, you know, numbness or tingling or dead arm, dead fingers has gone away. So, but only because I increased my dosage. I doubled it up. And that's you know, you look back and go, why is it different for everybody? And aside from just saying, well, just because it just is, you know, the science of that is everybody has a different hormesis point, you know, which you can Google that and figure out what hormesis is, but everybody has a different hormetic sweet spot that is required for cells to begin behaving properly, such that it reduces oxidation and such that it decreases inflammation. And that's the key. So that was my experience. I don't know if that answered your question, but it's been very helpful.
That's great. You know, the real deal is where the rubber meets the road, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And the rest is fascinating and worth the effort. But if it works, it works, and that's super. Thank you for the question. Thank you for that answer. And I'm going to pop to one thing. I'm going to wait on the skin for just a moment, and that is, let's take a look at some of the life situations that we could do better on. And there was a new product that was just released. It's a powder that comes into a small tube, and you take this powder, and here's an example of what one looks like. This is 3 different types of powders in these tubes, and you stick them up in a little bottle. And when you were talking about, is it your daughter-in-law?
Yes.
And you were saying that she had sort of some emotional things going on, some real stressors. Well, what we have is we call these Redox Mood, Redox Mind, and Redox Energy. So each one of these then says, on this core basic structure of us building this incredible place for life to occur, we can now begin to start to add those extra components for things like mood, mind, and energy. So in this particular case, although the body seems to really be able to figure out with and for her, maybe it was hard to find the components to put it together. That's really the idea behind these. These were developed with materials and natural processes that fit some of the criteria that we use to determine what is redox and why does it work. So what I'd like to do is to show you, let's see if I can pull that up, the criteria listing. There it is. Now we go back to that. Hopefully we can do this. That we determined is necessary for the adding these products back in. So I'm going to go up to the top of this, and it says, in this product set, these new products that we're bringing to the table, they have to fit the criteria of being redox signaling products. And so it has to meet one or more of these 4 different applications. It may not do all the things that the original redox signaling molecules do in adaptation and understanding and sharing information, but they do specific things. And so the ingredients must do one or all of these, the one or more of these things, including all of them. So the specific ingredients that go into them must have potentially a gene regulation. This means it has to enhance or make clearly or make possible turning on and off the gene or the expression of the gene, turning it up, turning it down. The genes are going to then control the systems that make things happen. It has to, it could have cytoprotection, which means cellular protection, protecting the cell from all kinds of ravages. Another thing that these ingredients could or should have are to adjust and recover. So adjust to the stressors, recover from those stressors in ways that, because you have that core basic redox, that are more similar to what you were like when you were young. And then finally, the adaptive response, and that's changes the needs with the changes environment. So as your environment changes, the stressors in the environment, you need to have a system that can adapt. And these materials have to help you to do that adaptation, to be aware of it, to adapt to it, however they might work. So with those criteria, there was a series of these new sets, again, for mood, mind, and energy. You simply put them in a bottle and shake them up and drink them. And it has been profound in the results that people have felt. So I'm going to go back to our general meeting here and ask people who have had a chance to experience those, what were some of the things that you experienced right off the bat?
So I'd like to make a comment. Last night, I had a very sleepless night. So I came down and I took a little redox, and then I took the mood, and I fell back to sleep. It was amazing. So that was utilizing the mood in a glass of water, and I was probably asleep within 20 minutes.
Something magical about having a logic between what the name says and what you're going to use it for. Have you ever used anything for sleep in the past, and did it make you groggy, or did it have any effects that you didn't like? And then compare and contrast with what you had with this.
So I generally am a pretty good sleeper. I have a few nights here and there where I've got a lot going on and I just can't settle down. So I don't generally take anything because I'm usually a good sleeper. One thing I always take at night is I take magnesium, and but so that was great for me. I didn't have any other items to take. And I had just picked up those 3 new items that Beth brought back for me. Thank you, Beth. And I put them right to work. It was
Super.
I
Now,
was-
some people will say that they feel really groggy if they're forcing the system to work. And that's where this comes into a really interesting set of what is this stuff called redox and why does it do what it does? Redox appears to pull things toward a center wherein you have the access to the materials and the ability to adapt to the world. And when we get way off that centerpiece, that's called equilibrium. When you leave that center spot too far, you just can't find your way back in. Well, if these then work to bring you here, then your system can choose to use it. So it's not forcing you and everything within you to move. So like, for example, people will take things to help them sleep that knock you out. In fact, what's interesting if you study sleep is that oftentimes those do not allow for deep sleep, or they do not allow for REM sleep. And so you're out, but you don't get the recovery where the body's rebuilding itself. And there was one back in the day, one of the drugs they were given to people where you'd get, it was like LSD, you'd get this, it would come on later when you're driving, or it would come on later when you're in a major meeting where boom, just remember, you use some of those prescription ones, you got to be real careful about that. Interesting. Anybody else have any experiences with just using it? Now, get that. These make sense to use for these situations and they work pretty quickly. Imagine how we can get this out in the field much quicker that way.
Yep, do you want to talk about the energy or should I?
Oh, go ahead. I mean, your own personal experience.
Well, Beth and I burned the clock a lot. She came in at 3 o'clock one morning, and so we wanted to be up and ready for the next morning. And we took the energy and also the mind, so that we could focus and really be alert and enjoy the meetings the next day. So I was very, very grateful for that. And then I'll just say, I've been staying at a resort, and one night I came down to the hot tub, and there was a whole soccer team there. And these are women over 40. They got silver, so they're good players. They're from all over the United States and Canada. And they were hurting and complaining about it. So I went up and got the Renew, had them use it. The next morning, they were on the lazy river and they saw me and they said, Marian, we want some of that stuff. So got 3 new customers, and I think the whole team's going to want them eventually.
Oh, nice.
So that was so much fun. And another gentleman there asked me how old I was. And then he said, do you have ID? And I says, yeah, it's up in the room. He says, I don't believe it. So that was fun.
Very good. And Beth, have you had any experiences yet with these new technologies?
Well, I will have to say that I did much better with the energy drink at the convention, because I think I would have pooped out a lot sooner than I did. So, and then last evening, I was at work and I actually drank some of it, probably a little too late, because when I went to bed, then I was struggling to not just get up and clean the house or something. I mean,
Oh, that would have been terrible.
I wasn't ready to go to sleep. I thought I was, but so I told Doug, I says, well, I guess I shouldn't have done the energy drink quite that late. But I have been.
I tried the energy on the plane coming back, and I took the energy drink, and I've kind of likened it to the fact that it's there if you want it, and if you need it, and it's giving you the tools that you need, but you get to choose what to do with them. It doesn't force you over the top. So for me, I immediately chose to go to sleep on the plane so I could be awake at home, and it didn't restrict me from doing that. So for me, that was a really deal. So go ahead.
I just have been so pleased with it. the regular, drink and Redox, of course, has helped my knee heal from my surgery. It's been an incredible part of that healing inside and out. I know there's a difference in that, and a kind of very interesting difference is when my surgery was first fresh, I sprayed on the ASEA as to not get any germs or anything into the incision. And then as it healed, then I started using the gel and off and on the spray. But kid you not, I have a patch of dark brown hair where I have been putting that, and my other leg has none. So
That's very interesting.
I would definitely encourage people to spray it on their hair if they're starting to lose hair,
Yeah. This is very interesting. God chose for mine to stay this way, but it did get thicker. It grew faster, and it got darker. In fact, my eyebrows used to be as gray as my hair, and they regained their color just by. And my hair is twice as thick because I look like a dead guy before. But it has been pretty remarkable. So I want to make sure we get a couple of things covered, and so realize that these are going to be available on March 2nd, I think it is, the 3rd. May. Not March. That's a long time away. But in May 3rd, so a week from now, you can go ahead and order these. They come in boxes of, I think, 30, and they will be available for order. Check out with people that you're working with, and they're a little less than $2 a tube. So they're less than an energy drink. The energy drinks and stuff that you're getting right now are going to cause you to get off on your sleep cycles and do all kinds of crazy stuff your body doesn't want to do. And this then is just applying what the body could use if it needs it. So let's jump to the part about the skincare. Again, another area where people are really accomplished. They have a lot of understanding about things to do with skin. You don't have to explain a whole lot of things. And what we found is that the application of this has been remarkably well received by those who are personal skin experts. And I'm going to read what it does. It says, Renew Advanced, this new skincare preparation system has been specifically formulated using powered by Redox ingredients. Remember, I told you those ingredients that take this base of Redox and empower it to fuel your skin's rejuvenation and renewal. And this means the skin that looks smoother, firmer, and more hydrated. And there are basically 4 different, let's see if I can show you a picture of that. 4 different parts. There's the cleanser up here, and then there's a toner that establishes your pH. Then you would use at that point the Renew 28, the pre-existing full body gel that we use that puts that actual Redox to work. And then the next one is called it's called the Glow Serum. And for those of you who are currently using the ASEA serum, it's a different category. This Glow Serum is a way of doing what it's supposed to make your skin just sort of luminous. And then finally, there's a magnificent hydration set. Now, some of the key changes to this, incredible formulations that go along with both of these product sets that we can go into some more detail as time goes by. But some of the ingredients on this, I think there was one that was so specific and so effective that it cost $2,600 for a 2-pound sack of it. So they didn't hold back on any of that. With all of the things that we've been talking about, there's now basically 4 categories that Redox uses that you can have access to. First is the Redox in the bottle, ASEA Redox supplement. There's also a pouch for the same thing, and then the Renew 28 that you can apply anywhere in the skin. And get effects like growing hair on your knee, that kind of stuff. And that's what I was going to tell you is the previous call, I actually had somebody who had gone to her sister and paid incredible amounts of money to have laser hair removal. She said that she was a perfect example because of her dark hair, and she had a 5 o'clock shadow each afternoon if she wasn't shaving every day. So she went and got laser hair removal and then had a bad knee from a ski accident. So she put this on her knee. It was fabulously successful for him, making the discomfort and the control in her knee. But she started growing patches of hair back wherever she put it. And she was like, really, I paid a lot for that hair removal. So similar. The next thing is that, and then this is a picture of the options that we saw before with this nutritional set called a SeaVia. And these are those things that your cells would be looking for if they got enough information to say, holy cow, we're on the wrong track. We didn't realize we were this far gone. We need to make some changes, or if we really want to juice up and become much better, that's all within that set. This is the older skin preparation set. Take a look at the difference between that and this. And you know what the younger ladies are saying? This rocks. And this is for old people, if you can believe it. And so this new stuff is really apparently much more vibrant. And one of the things they've done is they removed all of the, what do you call it? The scent?
Yes, fragrance.
The fragrance, because apparently that's a hallmark that there could be things like carcinogens and that sort of thing that are in things that have fragrance. So if you've got no fragrance, then it takes away that burden or that difficulty. And then this last field is this new set with these tubes of incredible. And these are going to just blast the business forward. So we'll tell people who are watching this for the first time, there's different things that you can gain from what we do. Some just want to be a consumer and use it on a regular basis. We welcome you to do that. Others like to share, and while they're sharing, maybe make a biggest possible difference you can make in the world. This has been a fabulous group for changing people's lives in many different ways. But at the same time, you can earn enough to pay for your own products if you'd like. Or you can begin to start to pad that income a little bit and ultimately get to a point where you could, I hope to teach people to make their finances so efficient that you can get done with the financial part and have enough time left over to what you really were meant to do in this world. And so with that, we have a whole system where you can come in and help out with the distribution, develop yourself, build your own self-respect and how the world works outside of being employed by someone. It's a phenomenal piece. And it not only costs $40 to buy worldwide distribution rights and in 32 different countries, and to really join a team like this, that's very helpful. We like to express that what are some correct expectations? Now, this core group, this central redox signaling concept is really about building your body better. And it takes time to do that. So with those particular products, we used to say that if that's all you were using, only a small percentage, maybe 17% or so, were getting a major effect within the first month. But if they stuck with it, they'd go up to about 50% in the second month. 75% of the users would find a magnificent kind of almost unexplainable positive effect over 75% in the second month. And by the third month, 90% of the people really had this irrefutable sense that something really, really magical was working here. So keep at it, because your body has to take whatever time it takes to get there. We now have the ability with these other tool sets to have people feeling it within 15 minutes. The application of Renew 28, some of the measurements we do, these tubes for very specific reasons are now augmenting and helping with the skincare, magnificent change in feel and look and that sort of thing, and the nutrition along with it. So that's kind of what we like to do with that one. The next page of this would be do it here officially. We do have 100% money back guarantee for these things, that if a person is not satisfied, then you can take up to 2 cases of this, and we not even without mailing them back. You just notify the company and get your money back, and that's really about all it takes. So that we try to do to just make it seem ultra fair. So the option sets up until today, they're going to change a little bit, are these pouches that you can get your ASEA Redox in, or you can get them in the bottles. We do them by the case. There's 16 of these 8-ounce ones in a case, and there's 4 of the 32 one in a case. A skincare kit, again, it's going to change to those really sexy looking ones pretty quick. That would be 1 case. Then a set of these 3 or more of the SeaVia would be 1 case. So we work on cases. That's how we generally do the ordering. You can order them individually if you like, but the cases are sort of our count value. Now, for people who become an associate, there's a really sort of special set for you. And these are people who are going to choose to get a larger portion to really stay with it for that 3 months, to really set the tone. And down here at the bottom, this is for an individual, and different mixes of product sets. If they do that, then you can literally begin a process of working for yourself. But let's say you have a spouse that needs it, or you really want to turn things up a little bit. You can order these sets that range around, with tax and shipping, anywhere between $550 and about $900. In that range, you get some specific perks as we go along. So that, for example, 12 free Renew 28 samples. Those are the little bitty ones here you see. Now, these 50 LRP points, that stands for Loyalty Reward Program. And what happens if you get onto the consistent set of orders, we call it now a subscription. And if you're on that subscription on a monthly basis, when you start this process, the first set of orders that you ordered will come to you right away, and it's charged right away. That you set up this subscription on day 1, and if it fulfills a month later, or 3 weeks to a month later, when it's time for that to be sent out to you, it's a special piece. So let's say you start with the Redox liquid over here. You want to maybe add a skincare kit or experiment with the SeaVia, then you can put that on your consistency. It depends on how you want to do that. It's all adjustable. But if you do that and do over $100 or 100 points, that's a case, then you can kick into this LRP. That means you get, every time that thing reorders, or every time you make an order under that category, you get 50 points on this initial order, and you start at 10% of each of the subsequent orders as new LRP points. Add them all up, you can get free products. Finally, there's a group that does what's called the entrepreneurial pack. These are people who have much more need for products. They want to have enough products on hand if they really started a business and move it out. Choices that are specific to your family. Sometimes it's all the liquids. Sometimes it's a cross between the liquid and the skincare. Sometimes it's predominantly skincare. Each one of these packages, you can see the numbers there. And this one would actually have these, instead of starting at 10% on the LRP load, it'd be 15. Instead of having to pay $40 to join down here at the bottom, you would be able to get that free and without shipping. That's a savings there. Overall, your perk values are $155 plus 150 loyalty reward points, which would equate to a full case and a half for free. So that's kind of some detail on that. Associates can also create your own pack. So sometimes the person that you're working with will help you to see how that works. And then adding that subscription It does have the option to set your own date for the subscription. So the nice thing is even those things that are on May 3rd, that will be an order you could make. You could start now with the bigger kit today and put down, yes, I want that to come after the 3rd of May. And you punch that button and change it. And then you can order these two new categories to come in your right away, as soon as you want them to do it, but after the 3rd. And then finally, see if I can get this to go. Oh, here we go. Now you can see these amazing, see, I'm colorblind, so I just don't have the appreciation that some people do for these really, really sexy products, but these younger gals just go, baby, just because they're in the better bottle. I like it. So I'm speaking as if I don't know what I'm talking about. So here's what this looks like. These are 30 to a tube or to a box. And again, official launch date, May 3rd, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And they're retailing or wholesaling for $50 a piece, $40 personal volume. So to get the wholesale pricing, you save 25% on the retail pricing if you're an associate or a preferred customer with no joining fee. The associate costs $40 US for a 12-month membership, and then it's $25 US annually after that. So these are some of the advantages that you would gain by being in the different groups. So with that, we want to just kick back and close out for the evening. Thank you, Dr. Lee Ostler, for being with us today. And thank you for Darleen for being an exceptional hostess, and for all the rest of you. So any questions at the last moment here?
I was just gonna put up Dr. Ostler's screen so people could see that, because we have viewers that aren't with us tonight, but since this is recorded, they'll be able to see it, and then they could get the links to his books. So I'll do that right now, if that's okay.
Okay, while she's working on that, for those of you, since this is an Eastern Washington kind of a deal here, we will be live here at our house, so you can actually see it, feel it. We can rev you up before we send you out the door. We can put your happy on, and we can be a group of people actually busting out and meeting people and enjoying the process. So it starts at 7 o'clock here, and I will type in the
Next Tuesday, May 3rd. You didn't say the day.
okay, let's go. Next Tuesday, May 3rd.
Yeah. Oh, is it next Tuesday? I'm sorry, I'm having troubles getting that pulled up. I apologize.
So next Tuesday, May 3rd, it'll be at our house. And I'm going to type it up here for you who know how to use Google Maps. Dr. Ostler, anything you want to do in closing?
No, just say thank you to everybody for allowing me to come and share a story and be a part of your meeting this evening. That was fabulous to hear Papa Bear talk about this again.
Dr. Osler, I do have a question. I was wondering about, you were talking about how different infections in the mouth and stuff can affect other parts of the body. What are your thoughts on that and dementia? And have you seen the ASEA make a change in those type of things?
To your last part of that question, no. I don't, from a relationship of oral health and neurodegenerative issues. Well, let me say it this way. Speaking from the oral health side of it, we know there's a relationship between periodontal disease, for example, and neurological disorders. And it has to do with the periodontal bacteria and the inflammation that they are dumping into the body. And we're actually seeing now in autopsy pieces and parts of those oral bacteria in brain amyloid deposits. That's obviously post-mortem because you can't dissect somebody's brain who's living to prove that. But the growing consensus is that oral infection does increase inflammation and is particularly worse when certain bacterial species are present. Therefore, reducing those bacteria is very helpful in reducing systemic inflammation and decreasing the inflammatory burden in the body. One of the things I'll just say that Jerry mentioned earlier was, that when we were talking about the mouth, well, it's one thing to talk about what you're not cleaning in your mouth. It's another thing to talk about the host side, the host response, the host capability, and systemically becoming healthy and reducing inflammation makes your gum tissues, your periodontal tissues, your oral tissues healthy, just like any other tissue anywhere else in the body. And so when you put those together and remove the agents that cause periodontal disease, for example, through good oral hygiene and systemically support your nutrition and have redox signaling happening from the inside out, you get both parts of the equation happening optimally, which is why we're seeing an enhanced response to people who are doing all the above.
Right.
Yes, you can expect this is a connecting the dots thing because we don't have studies that prove it one way or the other. But you're going to reduce oxidation, you're going to reduce inflammation, and you're going to see, better neurocognitive results.
Thank
Now,
you.
there's a guy who can speak precisely. That's why we put him out in front of public.
Thank you.
It's terrific. I've enjoyed this immensely, and we'll go ahead and turn off the recording. And thank you all for being here. And I always like to remind you that in Genesis, it says, be fruitful and multiply. So go do that. Bye for now.
Thank
Hi,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.